Doing pretty good, but I was just going to say before we got started with this, I wanted to mention that. So I was lining up audio, and I mentioned that sidechain compression thing, right?
Yeah.
Like in a conversation we had last week, maybe. Yeah. So what I had going was I had this microphone here, and then I had a SM57 on my guitar cabinet recording electric guitar. And this is when I was shooting that video breaking down your solo, right?
I remember it.
So what ended up happening was, obviously I'm getting room sound through this microphone from my guitar. When I played my guitar, it would come and like kind of overwhelm this microphone a bit. And so then this was supposed to be my speaking voice microphone, obviously. So I have it set up. So what I ended up doing was I put a compressor on this track and sidechained it to the guitar recording, which was, because it's a SM57, right? That's not picking up anything but what it's pointed at, or barely anything but what it's pointed at. And I set the compressor to activate based off of that microphone, and so it would duck the volume on this microphone every time that one reached a certain threshold.
All right, you gotta pause for. Now I understand it, but our audience may not, and that's, I think, the important thing.
Right.
How do you set up to make it duck? Is the right word? Duck. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I understand the concept. I just don't, like, is it a ratio? Is it a threshold? Is there a setting in the compressor?
There's a little setting where it's actually like a sidechain setting. You click on it and you choose which track to sidechain to. So basically what it does is it takes the compressor, and instead of being activated by this track and affecting this track, it's activated by another track but affecting this track. That's the idea.
And then when it gets
when
it gets activated, it's telling that microphone to shut off, correct?
Or at least to lower the volume by a certain set amount. And I get to set that amount, right?
Yeah.
So I can set the threshold, which means what level of this other microphone is going to activate the compressor. That's the threshold, right? And then I can choose how much it's going to compress this one down, how much it's going to like lower the volume, essentially. And in this case, I wanted it to lower it as much as possible so that I was losing this microphone essentially and only getting the other one coming through.
Gotcha.
And that's how I very, very simply actually ended up having this. My speaking voice through this microphone was good, at a good level. And then I was only really getting the signal from that microphone for the guitar. And I didn't have to do anything. It was all automated. I didn't have to do like any editing really, which is really very useful.
Yes. And a little bit over my head. I understand the concept. You might, actually, this would be a perfect.
It's one of those things it's hard to talk through, but it's easier to show, right? Like it's like it really needs a visual to go along with it.
And I've heard of people use it. I mean, obviously they use it for mixing all the time, and that's the term that I know. Like there's, hey, when that bass drum and the bass guitar line up, we're gonna use a sidechain compression.
Right.
Is that? Yeah. But
well, it's like, okay, so right? the common use for it in that case is to make sure that the kick drum gets through. So if the kick drum and the bass guitar are really locked together, playing at the same beats, or even mostly the same beats, which is a really good good synchronization for those two instruments to get, obviously. Yeah. So if you have that, you can sometimes get the mixture of those two low bassy signals kind of overwhelming each other, and you can lose the punch of the kick drum. Mm-hmm. So to make sure that punch comes through, you can have, every time that kick hits, it can duck the bass guitar briefly, right? So just like it gets that attack of the kick drum through while it's lowering the volume of the bass guitar, and then the bass guitar comes right back up after that attack comes through. And so you get that bass note too.
Yeah. I think it's Witchcraft.
A little bit of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is. Side chaining is pretty cool.
But it's I think it's all those little things like that add up to like really good sounding professional record. The difference when my phone was on, I was working on a little project and my phone was on listening to music because I wasn't around my computer, and all these little songs were coming up, right? Well, and then I heard our final mix of Higher Ground that's going to come out soon. And it was one of the first times since we've had it mixed, we've had it mastered, where like the audio didn't feel completely different in quality. Because usually, you know, if you have like a little rough mix of something, you know, you usually have that dip or...
Yeah.
But, and again, it's in my mind, it's all those little tips and tricks that somebody uses to make a song sound more professional. It's not one thing, it's 100 things.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the guy who mixed that track, Andrew Moore, he did a great job getting those drums to sound amazing. And I don't know how he pulled that out of just our raw tracks, which was with some serial compression is what he told me, and is really all he used.
Yeah, well, that and like
those drums
that was
so good.
They sound amazing to the point where I was like, Nick, are these samples? Which I would have been okay with. I would have cried a little bit, but I would have been okay. Yeah. But that was the silver drum set. That wasn't, I mean, not as good as microphones as we have now, which is probably part of the reason we had problems with a little bit of the hi-hats, right? Some ness.
Yeah.
But no, he did a great job. Not only everything I think sounds really good. So, like the mix of guitars.
He pulled through on that one, and he did it. He did it in a timely fashion, which is something that we are so not used to.
Yeah. So if you need somebody to mix your songs, what's his name again?
Andrew Moore. Yeah, we can put a link to his social media in the
little shout out. Yeah. Very cool.
Yep.
Sidechain, I'd like to learn more. So I think something that at some point you can show me and teach a little bit. Because right now I'm recording everything to 2 tracks, like when I do those videos. And I seldom mix them. But sometimes I get nervous about, you know, like if I bounce down those 2 tracks and put them right into Final Cut and then I go to edit them, sometimes I have to like play a little bit of level stuff, which isn't always fun. Yeah, right. Especially when you're bouncing back and forth between Logic and Final Cut. You want to kind of commit to something and have those equal volumes. Cool.
Yeah.
I've
been pretty fortunate with the levels that I've had set, just kind of working out in a lot of cases. But sometimes I do feel like the audio that comes through the computer is a bit loud. But
really?
It's okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with what's first on my agenda list for today. Contacts.
Which one is this?
Did I not put it on? I may have not put it on your list. Maybe I had 2 that I was embarrassed by. You know, I always like to share a little bit about my life. I totally did not. Oh my God, that's funny. No, so I had a meeting with John the other day, and I was like, man, I'm getting old, and my eyesight was changing, and like the computer was far away, and I couldn't see the screen. Did that for like 3 days. Put the contacts in the wrong eyes. I make mistakes all the time, but I don't do shit like that.
That's pretty funny though. Me having never worn glasses or contacts, I never had to struggle with that. But I did learn recently that I have a stigma in each eye, and so it's kind of cool. Well, not really cool. Stigmas aren't cool because they make your vision blurry, right? But I noticed that. Because I was trying to figure out which eye sees better, and I was just doing the old cover one eye trick, cover the other eye, and I would see something fairly clearly, and then I'd be like, all right, let's see which one it gets blurry on this, and I would cover one eye and it'd be blurry, I'd cover the other eye and it'd be blurry, but when I looked at it with both eyes, it would be clear. I'd be like, which eye is doing this? Which eye is compensating? But the optometrist explained to me that your brain is using the data from both eyes to form a clearer picture. It's actually like increasing the resolution of that picture from 2 fuzzy sets of data.
Yeah. Well, I had some fuzzy data the past week or so. So I've resolved it. I did an experiment. I switched contacts, all better.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that's pretty much my life. Hey, thank you. I'm glad you're happy for me. All right, so I want to talk about what you're working on this weekend. You were mapping out your drums for what song is it again?
Let It Burn, an old one I wrote back in 2014. I wrote it as an acoustic because all I had was an acoustic guitar at the time. And then later in 2015, I made an electric version, which is actually, it carries over a lot of elements from the acoustic version, but the arrangement ended up being a lot different and the tempo a lot faster, which added a lot more energy and I guess like rock to it.
Yeah.
But I had earlier this year I had re-recorded everything, guitars,
all the parts. Okay.
All the parts. Just
and then
redid it all because I'm.
In your first iteration, did you have just programmed drums?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I've only ever had programmed drums because I've never had a live drummer to do things for me.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't remember if you had first time like a real drummer or the computers are real too. I get it, but.
No. I used back when I had Logic 9. I used just the stock Logic drummer,
which is pretty
Logic
good.
9 drummer, which was way different from the Logic X drummer. Because Logic 9, it was just like a bad sample library.
Okay.
Or a half decent sample library. It wasn't anything like the kind of automated drummer that Logic X has.
Yeah. So that was your original.
So it was just original, just MIDI drums, and I redid the MIDI drums again for this new version because obviously I'm not going to do the drums myself, even though I had a kit available. I'm not a drummer, right? So, my friend Ross went ahead and laid down some drums, and I thought, okay, so I don't like to do drums at the end. Obviously, you know this. I like to do drums as the first track and get everything to lock in with that drum take.
Yep.
And that's where I feel like you get the strongest, the tightest mix, the tightest groove. And it's kind of like, to me, it's like building a building by starting at the foundation first and building things on top of the foundation, which is how you would ideally build a building, right? You're not going to
usually build
the attic in midair.
So the funny thing is, I was having a meeting with John, and I go, "Well, yeah, your writing process, you start with drums, right?" And he goes, "No." I was like, "Oh shit, I'm thinking recording," because we both have been there so many times that if you do not start first with drums, you are going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and so I just wanted to get these live drums tighter to the rest of the track, which was recorded to the programmed drums. So it was, it was like the perfectly in time. Because when I use Logic, I don't know Logic well enough to add like human feel to programmed drums. Whereas when I use Studio One, it's really easy. It's just like humanize option, and it slightly offs the velocities if you want it to, and offs the timing by whatever percentage range you choose, and adds that bit of randomness, which gives it a little bit of human feel. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I recorded it to those drums. And so when I pulled in Ross's drum takes, it was good, but it wasn't as tight anymore all of a sudden. It's like you could feel it, you could really tell. And so I went and just Flextimed it, and my initial idea was, all right, I'll just go through, and on every major snare beat, I'll have that kind of quantize, that snare, and that'll kind of pull all the drums into shape. Yep. Well, then it moved it enough that sometimes the hi-hat or a crash was doing a phase. It's having a phase issue. So then I had to go and like adjust little bits to clear out those phase issues. And by the time I was like, you saw the picture. It was like hundreds of little flex markers.
I'm going to show the picture right here because like the minute you said that, I just like went in my brain. I'm like, so many people have probably done this to a point. It's like, it's good to talk about. It's like therapy almost. Mm-hmm. So it's but the lesson, and obviously you can't go back in time because you kind of had this idea that you're going to do programmed drums, and then you recorded everything. And you're like, oh shit, I might want to try real ones. And it's not like Ross played bad takes. It's just your stuff was boom to the click, and he's a human.
And he is a human.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was probably four hours worth of just setting flex markers and making little adjustments to get those, to try to fix those phase issues, and listening through repeatedly to like try to catch all the phase issues. And then obviously anytime you start flexing a fill, you run into problems because you stretch this one here and this one here, and all of a sudden everything in the middle is wonky, and you're like, well, well, shit. Now how do I fix this? How do I make this sound like the fill was meant to sound? Even though I only like changed the beginning and end of it just the tiniest little bit, everything in the middle now falls apart, and now I gotta like somehow bring it back together. And
the best,
as you know, I mean, it's you spent an hour or two in your life Flextime drums.
That I'll get back sometime. I'm gonna get it back on the end. Yeah, it's tedious work too, and the best is when you fuck up a sample, and it's not even you fuck it up. It's just like Logic's like, nah, I'm not gonna put that there, and all of a sudden you get a drum that goes, or some bullshit. Like you're just like, that's not even possible. Logic, how do we do this together?
Yep. Yeah. Like Logic. Well, initially I tried to do like you know how Logic can automate it. You can quantize to say like the quarter note or the eighth note. And so I thought, okay, I have it set to be, it's in 12/8 time at 136 BPM in 12/8, which could be put into 4/4 with a like a 97.6 BPM or something. But anyway, I did it as 12/8, 136 BPM. I thought, okay, well that's the eighth note. So if I just quantize to the eighth note, then that would probably be too much because that's every beat. Yeah. Simply quantize to, I don't know, the quarter note or something. But when I did that, and as always happens, Flextime is great, but these algorithms aren't perfect by any means.
Yep.
And just like I'd listen to the first 30 seconds and there'd be so many things that called for fixing, so many things that were just so messed up all of a sudden that I was like, well, if I just go through and manually change just the couple little parts that need it. But then I was doing that and everything else started falling apart. So I was like, it was just this vortex that sucked me in. And I was like, well, now I got to like get the whole song and make sure everything's working. And this is something that, like you said, loads of people out there are used to doing. It's like a part of the process. But boy, would it have been so much less work had I just recorded to those drums.
Yeah, because then those little the small movement, maybe the quarter note quantization probably would work for you, right? You'd have enough of the fill that you wanted. It's almost like we had this the other time when we were just kind of massaging is what I want to call it, like getting these drums a little bit tighter, where like it started fucking around with the bass. Like there was some interplay that was witchcraft again, as far as I'm concerned.
That was strange. Yeah, weird things started happening that I still don't fully understand.
And I just
don't understand.
I'm not able to talk about it yet via my therapist. So she's like, wait a while yet. Like this has a half-life. So do you. You're almost done.
It's too soon. It's almost like the van.
I think like it'd be cool if Logic had and maybe they do and we just don't understand the program well enough. Like if you could, because I think the problem is like when you do the verse and then also you move to the chorus and you change one thing and it affects this, even though you have that off, it'd be cool if you could like freeze that section or lock that section only.
Right.
Like that's what it's missing.
And I remember doing something along those lines when I was working on those drums for those songs you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where when I wanted to make a change, I would set like a flex marker here and a flex marker here to make sure that only stuff in the middle was affected. But the problem is a lot of times when you set a flex marker, it's automatically adjusting things already. It doesn't just be created. It makes an adjustment of some kind, and then it's like everything is moved just enough, right? To cause issues.
Just enough. Yeah.
And unpredictably.
Yeah. Well, unpredictably is the best way to say that. I think the best thing, as you know, and this is kind of why I was like, this is a great conversation point. The lessons are just always start with drums. Just always fucking start with drums.
The best idea I could think of would be to cut the tracks, like to actually cut the audio to create your segment that you want to individually flex time.
When I made that little backing track for our songwriting, and I kind of like, because Zach and I didn't really accomplish what I wanted us to, and nor should we have. It just really wasn't the agenda. So I kind of just made his drum part what I wanted it to be. I kind of chopped it up and did whatever I want. Well, then I flex-timed. So I flex-timed this whole chunk. Well, then I found another chunk of drums, and I moved them in. And no matter what, I could not make the second time flex time without bringing all new It's just like, this is and then you're like an hour in and you're like, I should have just done this a different way, but it's too late because you've already invested an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had a really scary moment while I was flex timing the drums yesterday where I accidentally clicked the flex off button. And then so I was like, oh, I'll just turn it back on. But when I turned it back on, it like redid all the flexes. I was like, oh no. Because I was done. I was just doing like a listen back was my only intent. And I was trying to adjust volumes and kind of give it a rough mix. And I was throwing like a compressor on the drums too. And that's when I hit it. So I was done flexing the drums. And then it like erased all my flex work. And I was like, oh shit. So thankfully there was, undo, and I was back to where I was. But I had a really scary moment where I was like, well, even if I do undo, is it going to save all my work or is it going to just be like a blank slate? I didn't know.
Yeah, that is, flex time is painful. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
All right.
Truth.
Oh, I don't know if this is next on your agenda either, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make sense of this in my state. But so I was practicing drums. I'm trying to finish my dreams in 7 days. Clearly, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Just been hitting vocal.
Like 21 days.
21 days. Yeah, 7 or 21. But I've been hitting vocals and drums and just polishing, like getting this, right? But I was practicing drums for probably on Saturday, maybe 2 hours before I moved to vocals. And I was like, every time I practice this verse, instead of it takes me, and this is not the right example, but the verse, say the first time I practice it, I can even do some of those fills within 30 minutes. Well, the next time I practice it, I can do those fills in 15 minutes. The next time I practice it, I can do it in 10 minutes. The next time, eventually I'm going to get it to song length. All I've been doing is like, it hurt my brain a little bit because I'm like, eventually I'll just play a song. Because every time I practice, I get better.
That is a strange concept, and I think we should share this with the world. I don't think anyone else out there has actually come to this realization yet.
There might have been drinks involved, and that might have been part of it. But I really, for a second, was like, shit, if I get shorter than a measure, will I disappear? I was worried for a second. I wish I was joking.
Technically, mathematically, you can't get from point A to point B if you're always having the distance. Then you can infinitely have the distance and never actually get there.
Don't. I have to sleep here alone, so don't do shit like that to me. All right, so moving on, we got some new songs uploaded. We have Pride and Joy, Stevie Ray Vaughan. We're looking at the lead guitar part, rhythm lead, because this one doesn't have a secondary lead part. And what I think we should talk about, Nick, is Skank.
Skank strumming. All right. What's this song called again?
Pride and Joy.
Yeah. It's amazing how I can draw a blank that quickly between you saying the name and me like clicking into the folder and then forgetting the name.
I don't listen to myself when I talk either, so.
Rhythm lead guitar, because we don't have a separate lead guitar. He's a very rhythmic player, which is why his solos are so groovy, because he just brings all that rhythm playing into his soloing. And he was a phenomenal blues guitarist. All right, so let's see. Clean with a little overdrive, generally downstrokes. Yep.
What does skank actually mean? I mean, can't make that joke.
Let me just grab a guitar. The basic idea in skank is that you're hitting all your strings, all right, with every strike, but you're only having your intended notes ring out.
Okay.
So you're muting all the strings. So in this case, I only want to play a B on the A string.
Okay.
But I want the attack of those other strings and give it that percussive nature, percussive element, right? And so in this case, is it on this part?
Measure 6 says continue skank. I think we, instead of using the X's are all skanks. Skanks. Is that right? Yeah, it's skank. Putting an S on it makes me feel weird.
Oh, I see. Yeah, he's like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. So I learned it differently, so I'm gonna just play it how I learned it because I just know.
Play it.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So you haven't always that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So John's got it written out as like.
Good sight reading. So like the
well,
Red Hot
it's
Chili,
written out really well, so I was able to know what was going on quite quickly.
Is that not nice when you have music that's well written out?
Yeah.
You can sit there and just read it. Okay, the funny thing is it's well written out, but I couldn't sight read this one.
No, it's one of those things though, like if you have some of the basic blues licks in your fingers and you understand the concept of skank strumming well enough, then you can kind of sight read it. But if you're trying to learn skank strumming and then trying to sight read this, then it's probably going to throw you.
Okay. Now, is it mostly a blues technique, or is it everyone uses it?
It's more like a funk technique.
Okay.
It's very, very common in funk guitar. Okay. Well,
which makes sense because we have "Can't Stop" by Red Hot Chili Peppers that has that too, and that's a little bit, they lean some funk.
Like another example would be the Red Hot Chili Peppers, where it's like. That kind of thing, and that's exactly it, right? I'm just playing the one note.
Yeah.
But I'm hitting all the strings.
Yep.
So it's a very, very common funk technique.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, you can get that new tab on musicbythemeasures.com. Check it out. Sign up for a membership.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So the other song that we're looking at, so we have all the music for Pride and Joy. We also have all the sheet music for Sweet Home Alabama, which means piano, keyboard, bass, piano and keyboard. So what I thought on this one we'd highlight is the rhythm guitar, which is that the quintessential dun 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 dun.
Right. Sweet Home Alabama.
Which, by the way, I think every cover band in the world has to play it. Do you guys?
We don't play it, which I'm pretty happy about. I had nothing against the song, but I think the guitar is fun to play, but I have no desire to play it, if that makes any sense. No,
I don't mind the song either. Some of the playing is a little fast for me.
It was actually one of our test songs at school, Sweet Home Alabama.
Well, in the music studio, it's one of those riffs that I think is close, that people can know and hear and sounds like it on guitar. So it was always really heavily requested.
Right.
It meets that nice
and it's
middle
featured
ground.
in that what's his name from Detroit,
Kid
rapper,
Rock.
white dude.
Yeah,
Kid Rock. Yeah.
Yep. That's actually, I think, Werewolves of London that's featured there. Which, if you listen to Werewolves of London, it's basically Sweet Home Alabama. But I do think it actually is Werewolves of London that it's the same song, but we'll look that up someday and see if we actually care.
Yeah.
This song does have
it's
two
not
good.
Like the chord progression is crazy. So I'm sure
I've never seen a song with D, C, and G before. What are you talking about?
You were saying?
Well, the interplay between these two electric guitar parts. So this is the rhythm one, but so just two cool parts. Get the tabs at musicbythemeasures.com. If you have any questions, it's musicbythemeasures.com.
Did you have any points you wanted to bring up on this song? Is that Was there an idea, or is it just pointing out that you like the interplay?
I like the interplay a lot. That's pretty much it. Just it's a lot of riffing the whole time. Yeah.
You know, I really like the reintro at 39 seconds. That one's fun to play. That part is actually a lot of fun to play. When it hits the chorus, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's a basic blues rhythm guitar, right? That idea, and it's just, you know, all rock music originated in the blues anyway. So you see a lot of that in the early rock music.
Cool. So like lead guitar measure 29 you're talking about? Do I have the right one?
Guitar measure 29. Yeah. I was looking at rhythm guitar, same place.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that riff on that re-intro riff, oh my God, that's such a good riff, but it's again, skill set wise, a little bit fast for me. I bet I could learn it now. Okay. But I tried to learn it 10 years ago, and I was in a cover band 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I was shit. But, you know, I was good enough to be the guitarist. But I remember always being sloppy on that, and it's so embarrassing when you know you're bad at it and you still are playing it at a bar.
Yeah.
I
actually at the gig, the first gig we did as a cover band, most recently, our first song was that Cars song, My Best Friend's Girl, and I had a bit of nerves going into that solo because I had just started learning it a couple days before the gig, you know. And it was actually a bit more complex and tricky than I thought it was going to be. So it wasn't in my fingers yet.
Yep.
So it was like one of those just pray it works out moments, you know. And for the most part, I got it.
Okay. Did you notice a couple flubs or not?
Oh yeah, I totally flubbed it. Yeah. But I played the first half of it well enough that they forgave me for the second half of
it. and I always ask myself, like, how much the audience can tell. Your band might be able to tell, but like, especially if they've had a couple. I mean, your audience at the first song hasn't had a couple drinks, or maybe they have, but not they.
They're a bit more discerning, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the night, they're very forgiving. If it sounds like music, they're pretty happy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So those are the new songs. I don't really have anything else to chat about unless you do, sir.
No, I think we're good. What was you have a note here of the quantum leap theory is the practicing actually works idea? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's not practice that actually works, Nick. I was inventing a time machine and I could have killed us all. I don't even know at this point. I'm not even joking. You can laugh if you want to, but I'm pretty fucking serious.
I'm just going to laugh then. I'm happy
That's
with
fair. Yeah. So, all right. You have a good week and I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you.